So I'm going to go through today and describe a little bit. This is a hands-on sort of a basic intro on how to build a hello world, if you will, with the Kynetx system, and a couple of things there. This is more workshop mode now rather than delivery mode, so if you have questions or things that are coming up, please let me know, and we can talk about them, or I'll tell you that we're going to talk about that later in another session or whatever we're doing. So the first thing I want to explain is a little bit about how this runs. The first, Kynetx Network Services is the collection of all the services that Kynetx provides in order to run your application. And so there's a lot of things in there. What you run on Kynetx Network Services is known as the Kynetx Rule Language, or KRL for short. This is a rule-based language that might be a little unlike you're used to. It is a rule-based language because it is reactive to the context of the user. And so your rules sort of respond to what happens as the users are traveling the experience that you're creating for them. And so it might be a little different than you're used to, and there will be definitely questions on that, and we're happy to help you sort of understand the methodology behind what we're doing and how to best use it. Another important thing is that KNS is a dual execution environment, meaning some of the code you write actually runs on the servers that power Kynetx Network Services. Some of that runs on the client, and we actually generate code that ships down to the client to run there. So there's two places your code runs. Your code runs on the Kynetx servers themselves, and code runs in the client's browser with a browser extension or a browser endpoint. So that's an important thing to understand as you're debugging. There's lots of advanced things that brings up, and I'm going to be talking right before lunch tomorrow about some advanced uses of Kynetx and how to do some advanced debugging and integration. The powerful part about this dual execution environment is that we try to hide the ugly stuff. We don't want you to have to deal with cross-browser differences. We don't want you to have to deal with subtle differences between Chrome or Microsoft Internet Explorer. We want to hide those from you so that you can get about building your application without having to worry about all the little things. We also hide some of the ugly stuff that happens when you want to do several things sort of at the same time. For example, if I have two applications or two rules that are firing and they're both running what we call the notify action, we handle that gracefully, and that's one of the powers of using the actions that we provide, is that we can handle lots of these situations for you. So let's get started building some stuff. The first thing that I want to show you is a few websites that you might want to be familiar with. They kind of all cross-link, and so if you don't grab a URL or the domain, you'll be able to find it fairly easily. The first thing is our new developers website, where we link to lots of the available stuff. There will be videos from this conference available there in the future and other content to help you in your development needs. The second thing that I'm going to bring up is our code blog. When we release something new into the system, it gets posted here and with explanations about how it works and what's going on. These are posts specifically of interest to developers. So we have another business blog where there's lots of press releases about new and upcoming things in the industry. The code blog specifically focuses on things of interest to developers, so that's worth adding to your feed reader. The documentation is collected into what we call the report on KRL, and this goes into all sorts of different things, including lots of details about the execution model and how this runs. It's also a really great place to actually figure out what you can do in the language and short little examples of predicates and all sorts of actions that you can take. So that's worth reviewing as well. The last thing that you want to be familiar with is App Builder. App Builder is the IDE that we have today to help you build your Kynetx applications. It is browser-based, and currently it is the only way to develop Kynetx rules. That will shortly change as we make steps to open back-end APIs for the development of any IDE that you might wish. You might find yourself in a situation where you want people to build Kynetx rules and be able to affect how Kynetx rules are written, but don't want to subject them to the full range of things that App Builder has to offer. And you can build your own custom IDE and submit directly to our backend without involving App Builder at all. So what I've done, I have a demo account that I'm going to log into, and I want to build a hello world rule with you so you can see from start to finish how you get started building an application. I'm logging into another account that is not loaded with all the things I do on a regular basis, so that it'll be a little easier to see what I'm doing. So by the way, I didn't show this, but if you go to the root of App Builder and you do not yet have a Kynetx account, there's a link there that will take you to sign up. You sign up, put in your info, click the email link, and you've got an account. I won't walk through that because we've all done that a million times. When you log into App Builder, this is a list of all the different applications you have within App Builder. And I'm going to make a new application, and I'm going to call this Hello World. And I'm going to click Create Descriptions Optional. This will take me into the editing environment for KRL. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the overhead of creating an app. Some of this I'm going to get into today. Some of it I'm going to push on to tomorrow's discussion. The meta block here is a way for you to describe your application, including the name of the application, a description of it, and your author name, which actually shows up in several places depending on how you deploy your application. This logging off, you can switch logging on and off that will provide you detailed logging from the engine in the form of JavaScript comments that are shipped down to your browser, and I'll be detailing that this next week. Or not this next week, but tomorrow in my advanced discussion. So the dispatch block is where you tell the application where it's going to be running so that it can know to run there, as well as hint to browser extensions that that's where Kynetx tags ought to be deployed. So you can add domains, and there can be multiple domains. There's no limit to the domains you can have. I want to build my application today on xkcd.com because I appreciate their humor. So I'm gonna type that in and hit save, and then I'm gonna move on to the global block. I'm not going to use the global block in this example, but the global block is where you set up data sets and data sources for use within your application. Phil will talk about data later today, and I'll get into a little bit tomorrow as well. Data sets or data you might want to load into your application in order to affect the behavior of your application. Right now, the easiest way to bring that into Kynetx is in a JSON format, JavaScript object notation. Data sources are dynamically callable resources that you have that you can pass arguments. So if there's some information you only know at runtime, then you can retrieve a sort of a subset of a larger data set through a data source. You'll need a backend service for that. You can declare global variables inside this block as well that are available to all of the rules inside of the application. Global variables are very useful for things that you want to be available all the way through and not have to declare them each time. You can also emit JavaScript globally here, and I'll talk about emitting JavaScript in tomorrow's discussion. So I'm gonna go make a rule. I'm gonna click on rules and click new rule, and I'm gonna call this hello. The name of the rule matters only so much as logging and debugging goes. So you might want to name these things that make sense to you to help you figure out what's going on. So I'm going to select, and I'm going to put a dot here in the select line. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm going to use an action called notify. It takes two arguments. The first one is a title, and the second one is the body of what we're doing. I'm going to mark this rule as active, and I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to publish this rule. I can make several changes before I hit publish, so if you have involved things, you can do them all at once. And this will go ahead and publish. Now, I built this application. It's live on the Kynetx system, and I need a way to run this application in order to be able to develop it even in the beginning. So, under deployment here, I'm actually going to go to info card, and I'm going to develop an information card that is action card enabled to run this. And so there is a pre-built image here that we've automatically generated. You can actually replace that elsewhere in App Builder, but I'm just going to use the example card here. It's given me a .crd file, which I'm going to elect to have installed with Azego-Lite, and makes very sure that I want to do that. And then the Hello World application was imported. In Azego-Lite, it lists the sites here that those apply on, and XKCD is listed as a site there that will happen. And then, of course, you can enable or disable cards if you want to temporarily disable the effects of a card without removing it entirely. So I'm going to go to XKCD. So here's the website, and up in the corner here you've seen Hello World. This is a test, and you'll notice that it's going to vanish in a minute because the default behavior of Notify is to kind of come up, show you, and then vanish. So I'm going to switch back to App Builder here, and I want that message to stick around so that people can see it until they're done with whatever my application does. So I'm going to click back